tonight. Good. Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order. A regular meeting of the Village Board on Monday, June 3rd at 7 p.m. in the Village Hall Boardroom and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all Village Board members present. At this time, I'll ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is President's Report. Just one thing to report tonight. Most should have received a mailing from the Village Hall to inform you of two public input sessions that are being scheduled for input on the redesigning or repaving of Division Road from County Line to Mequon Road. The first meeting is scheduled for June 20th, and it starts at 5 o'clock, and it's scheduled from 5 to 7, and it's going to be held at Spaslin Park. And the second meeting is scheduled for July 23rd, again, same time, scheduled from 5 to 7 p.m., and that'll be held here in the conference room at Village Hall. It's one of the main thoroughfares of the village. It's one of the few roads that go from County Line to Mequon, north and south. It's usually like Wasaki, Pilgrim, and Division, and Maple, if you want to count Appleton Avenue. But it's one of the main thoroughfares that go north to south within our village. If you travel it on a regular basis, or if you use it as a way to get to any of our areas within the village, your input is looked for and welcomed at any of these two meetings. So please put them on your schedule. You should have received a postcard in the mail. And if you haven't received it yet, it should be arriving shortly. That's all I have for Village President's Report. So we can then go to announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports, starting with committee chairs with Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room this upcoming Wednesday, June 3rd at 5:30 p.m. The meeting may start 10 minutes late due to a conflict in the room with the rec department.
All right, thank you. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance will meet in this boardroom on June 17th at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Hudson.
Public Safety will meet in this room at 6 p.m. on July 1st.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports they'd like to bring forward? Trustee Jan Miller.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to make an announcement for the parks. We are starting our Music at the Pavilion, and this Thursday, that would be June 6th at 6 p.m., we will have our first band at the Pavilion at Fireman's Park, and it will be Bella Kane, and they're a great group, so please stop by. We'll have all kinds of food. We'll have Bub's Irish Pub, smoked brisket, and Mateo's, that's Mexican. We'll also have Tots on the Street and Kettle Corn, Janda's Base Camp, and Old Germantown, just to name a few. So we'll have great beer, great food, and great music. Please be there. 6 to 9, Thursday, June 6th.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, I wanted to mention on behalf of the Historic Preservation Commission that we are going to be having a plaque presentation at the Hensley Foster, the Hensley Foster home on Pioneer Road. And it's a Jackson address, so it's a little confusing, but it is on the website as well. It is in Germantown. We just have some crazy zip codes here. And it is a beautiful old stone home that has been preserved, built in 1860. And Hensley is very proud of his property and should be. It's a working hobby farm, and he invites everyone on the 15th to come for the plaque presentation at 2:00.
Here's the more the merrier, as he really wants a nice turnout if possible.
Yeah.
And it's your opportunity to see maybe a house that you drive by on occasion and
You
would like
can't
to
see it
see.
from the road. It's so far back that you won't be able to see it from the
That
road.
would
so.
be, worth stopping and taking a look at something that has that much history to it. Thank you. Anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Seeing there are no others, we can then go to citizen input. If there's anyone within our audience or joining us via WebEx that would like to participate in citizen input, if you're within our audience, if you could please turn in a yellow slip and come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record. If you're joining us via WebEx, please make your intentions known, and the person monitoring the WebEx will present you at that time that you're ready to participate in citizen input. So at this time, citizen input.
Okay, I'm Lynn Shower Bednars. I live at 101 21 North Pawnee Court. I'm here tonight. I would like an extra 2 minutes for one reason. I have been at this meeting several times about my trees. Government is to protect. This is the Constitution of our country. Life, liberty, and property, okay? And my issue right now tonight is my property. The government needs to protect citizens from human right issues and enforcing rules of society. My security of peace and protect my well-being, okay? That's the rule of government. It may seem boring to people, but that's written in our Constitution. And human rights are enforceable. Enforceable rights stem from notions of equality, and when they're violated, they create a cause for injury. I feel with this tree issue of mine, I have been discriminated against for help. I'm going to give you the story and then I will sit down. I came to the board to ask for help because neighbors' trees were growing right through my arborvitaes, big, huge arborvitaes that have been together for 40 years, and they were damaging them. All I asked was help to protect my property from destruction. I brought pictures, I brought everything. The trees, and showed you the trees, what they caused me, plus the additional cost for me to clean it up. The neighbor refused all 3 efforts of contact. I came to the board again after 2 people offered to help me at the board to cut the trees at no charge. The neighbor refused. She was very indignant and said, no. I have been paying almost $400 a year to clean up my gutters from her trees and vacuum the leaves at the end of the year and pick up all the debris that falls from this enormous maple tree that's considered an invasive tree in our state. And finally, I asked the police department to come out, and Officer Martin came out. And here's what he said. He saw no evidence of branches damaging my arborvitaes. How ridiculous can you get? When the tree is split like this, you can see right through it. There's 10 feet of branches going through the other side of the tree, and you can't see evidence of branches destroying my property? That's incredible. And I was really upset I don't like that when people say things that aren't true. And Officer Martin returned to the Germantown police and contacted the neighbor via phone. She was upset and stated she's not cutting the branches down, stating if Lynn wants them cut down, she can. Now, I'm going to take this statement as an opportunity and permission to cut my branches down. And Chief Snow said I could do that. And Officer Martin advised the neighbor that I didn't want to pay for cutting the branches. And she was asked if she would be willing to cut them down. She stated she would not. However, she said I would complain about something else. I haven't complained about anything to this woman. I've lived there for 16 years. And she had the last 4 years, she had terrible tenants that did nothing. And that's the only time I've complained. I can't walk hardly. I can't bend. And they see me with a crutch and with everything else trying to clean up my yard. That's unbelievable. And to tell me I'm complaining, and yet I'm doing it with extreme pain. And Officer Martin told her she would not, that Lynn would just complain about something. So anyway, finally, she said that she would agree to cut the branches, and they gave her till the end of the month. Well, the month came and nothing was done. And I called Officer Martin back 5 times. I did not get a return from him. So I finally went to the police station myself, and I asked for talking. And what has happened now is once she didn't do that, I went to the police station and I talked to the Officer Martin's officer in charge. I can't remember his name. I got no help from them. Mrs. I won't mention your name, said that if Lynn wants to cut the trees down, she can do it herself. And Chief Snow, I went to the office the other day and he told me that our city attorney told him that this is a civil law. A local law or ordinance will be preempted by state law if it is an express conflict with state law. In other words, there is a tree ordinance, there's a maintenance ordinance, and the state has one, and that law supersedes. Chief Snow wouldn't listen to me. I was shut down. He didn't want to talk to me because he said, I heard enough. I've heard your argument and I'm done. And I don't think that's right. Okay, I was insulted. I'm paying $5,000 a year to live here. And you people are on the payroll, okay, with all our taxpayer money. And I feel my property should be protected and I shouldn't have to pay. The person who caused the problem should be paying for it. And the concept that the owner of real property can do whatever they please is no longer in harmony with the reality of society, okay? That's a reasonable use law whether it shall apply. Now, definition of a private nuisance, 3 things. You own the property, you have suffered physical damage, harm, or ongoing and continuous financial loss, because it hasn't been corrected. And the code is to protect safety, morals, financial loss, welfare by establishing standards that govern maintenance. We have those standards in our bylaws, in the state laws, and I don't understand why it's being ignored. I really don't. I talked to the Attorney General today. I try to get through the district attorney, and it's just unreal. And the act, and also in the elements of nuisance, the act is considered unreasonable and causes suffering of damage and prevents a person from enjoying their property. I stumble out there. I go to my yard. I'm limping. I'm in pain. I can't even lift anything, and I'm cleaning up this mess. It's ridiculous. It really is that I have to go through this when we have a law that should be followed. And a civil law is a civil law until it actually turns into a private damage situation, which this is. And I have been discriminated on the use issue and have not been protected from damage to my property and my right. I have not been met by my government, and now I have to pay. I have a person. I called the young man. He knows trees very well. He said he would. Now I read the thing and I'm going to ask Chief Snow. I don't want to suffer any problems. This statement, she said, if I want it, I can cut it down myself. If that's true, can my man that I hire cut it, Chief Snow?
Side of the fence.
And can he come and cut the tree? What? I didn't get an answer to this because I just read your comment. She said I could, if I want it done, I can cut it. I don't want this young man to have a problem with suing somebody because she just gave permission for me to cut the tree. And he doesn't want to just cut the area because that's not how you cut a tree. You don't just slice a branch off. You cut it by the trunk so that it won't injure the tree. That's the proper way, and he wants to do it the proper way. There's only 4 branches that he has to cut. And I have to pay for it, and I don't think I should have to. I think that this board should cite that person and recover damages for me, but this is what's been going on. So I think that I have never experienced anything like this in my life with not being able to have the government protect my property. What if something else happens? What's going to happen if somebody else has an issue? So thank you for listening. I really appreciate my anxiety, but it's not good.
Where's your thing? Never slip.
It's hard.
Okay. Lynn, call the village administrator tomorrow, just so we're clear on how they're going to cut this, so it doesn't cause more problems for you, because there are some private property rights that are concerned. Anything that would hang over your yard, you can absolutely cut. But I'm not as sure, and that would be something that somebody else would have to define, if that person can go on their property to cut it. I'm not clear of. I know, I understand that, but it may be, if she denies that person on their property, he may have to cut it just right at the property line.
Not good for the tree.
Well, you know what, and if that tree would die, would that bother you? If that tree would die, would that bother you? Okay, well then, and I understand that, but what I also don't want is further angst and anxiety for you if somehow they're not allowed on their property and it becomes a bigger issue because of it. So let's just be clear. Contact Steve Krecklo tomorrow at the Village Hall. Give him a call. You don't have to come in, and we'll just make sure everything is clear.
Statement for face value.
I hear, yep, I understand that. We just want to make sure that that means that you can get on her property to cut it, and it's not, well, and we've seen other neighbor issues with overhanging branches. And some of it is where the neighbor has just cut it right on the property line, because anything that hangs over on your property, you can't cut. But that's correct. You are correct, and your arborist is correct as well. But we just want to make sure that we're clear on what that statement means, and that it is going to be allowed to be on her property. Okay? All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Mm-hmm. Nice to see you, darling.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Darlene Bozen, North 105, West 17134, Old Farm Road here in Germantown. I'm here tonight to speak to new business line item number M, which is a resolution to support the grant application for the library's second floor. I realized that the library a couple of years ago did a lot of work already. We picked a new library architect, and we've got all our ducks in a row. I just, as one of the original people who was on the library board when we went through all of that over there, I just wanted to assure you that the feasibility study we did in 1997 it was done by library architects. It solely was based upon Germantown population. It did not include our service population, which, as I'm sure you all know, is way bigger than the Germantown population. We also did a feasibility study on the Washington Square Mall issue. They offered us library space in the Washington Square Mall on Pilgrim and whatever. And we went through a whole bunch of meetings and years of going through everything. And it ended up that the village board decided the police got our old library, which I hope they don't mind. Never heard, but anyway, the Washington Square Mall situation was turned down because we had a lot of angry village residents. They weren't quite pitchfork angry, but they were very unhappy about it. And it ended up the village board kind of looked at us and said, there's your spot. They wanted a village center. They wanted you to be able to come here and shop, come here, go to the library, go to the police, and it's all in one spot. And also a couple of things we learned that I learned as a library board member was that libraries need infrastructure for the stacks with the books. It weighs a lot. Retail space doesn't quite meet those needs. And we also wanted to have a building, you know, that takes space that we have and makes it so that the people that we hire to coverage it and make it safe, that we use a minimal amount of people to staff it. That was one of the biggest reasons when we got down to deciding on that building, was that we wanted to minimize the staff, because we all know how much staff is a part of budgets. We all know that staff, it's hard to get extra staff when you think you need it. So that was another issue when we did that building. And in case you're wondering why the book drop is in the back, that was another issue to maximize staff so that they could go take the books out and get them back out into the library. When we did that whole building, we knew from the start that it was going to be a two-phase project. We only got 3.9 million, and we did the best we could with what we were given. One of the big issues we did have is that we wanted a future library board to know that they had a way to expand. That was the problem with the previous library. So when the process went through, it was 26,000 square feet with 14,000 above. It has the steel, it's got the elevator, where the elevator should go, everything is there. And we hoped it would be much easier for a future library board to make the decision to expand than it was for us. So we're kind of coming full circle. This is an opportunity. I've been on the board for almost 30 years. You don't get opportunities like this, don't come along to apply for grants. Usually they're all small potatoes. And I think just from all the information that Tricia's done and the library board's done with the new architect, we got all our ducks in a row. We've got all the feasibility studies, everything's set. We're much more, I think, we're farther ahead than a lot of other communities are that are looking at an expansion of this sort. So I hope you will embrace the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Thank you.
Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. I have just a variety of things tonight, mostly questions. But one comment, and I read this statement yesterday, and it just seems fitting. Most important communication often is what is not being said. I thought that was pretty interesting. Recently at the GGF meeting, a new contracts list was posted, and I thought it was interesting that there was $55,000 paid to Grey Wolf for a Village Center Phase 3 project. And if there's Phase 3, what about Phase 2 and Phase 1, and how much money was spent? And I looked up the date, and it coincides with when there was one of those closed session meetings, and the village board went into closed session to discuss that. We haven't seen anything about it. There have been no neighborhood meetings. Today at the public safety meeting, we had described to us presentation of proposals by 4 firms for a new public safety building, site selection, things like that. But there was no information about the actual proposals in the packet. And it would have been good to be able to see that. And as in the past, we've often had the actual companies come and make presentations. This is a significant chunk of money that we're going to have to get some bonds for. If you look at the DPW, the original budget for that was $20 million, and it's turned out to be a $38 million project. One of the things that's has been missing, which I thought was great at the beginning of the year, where we had the members of the police and fire department come forward and be presented with awards. We heard about some of the things that they have been doing for our residents and for people outside of the community. And I'm requesting that we have more of that throughout the year. I mean, why did it stop? Now that the referendum has passed, it just goes away. We should continue to hear about these things. Question about the impact fees, clarification I'm asking for. What first question is, on that heritage property, did anyone look at if any of the other projects in the community, if they had wrongfully charged impact fees? Were the percentage of impact fees to be paid back in the correct proportion based on the math for those impact fees? And then how are impact fees handled for TIDs? And that's just a question, I don't know. The last thing, it's quick, I know I'm going over. An upset resident contacted me last week, very concerned that the village is paying a significant fee to people, residents, for an easement, and apparently these people have not paid their property taxes, and I just want to know if that's true or not. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Thank you.
Scott Heffley, W159 N10514, Wolf Farm Road, Germantown. Starting with the definition that I think needs to be shared, servant leadership. Okay, servant leadership is a leadership philosophy that prioritizes the needs of others over the leader's own. Servant leaders are motivated by selflessness and believe that people have intrinsic values beyond their contributions. This says as workers, I say as residents. They are committed to the growth and success of their residents and measure their own success by their resident successes. I believe this is a core value of the village board, or one that you should follow, and probably most of you got on this board for that reason. I would like you to continue thinking that servant leadership is your guiding principle, and that is the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter what you think, what you want to get done, what platform you have. You need to put the residents first. I'm sorry, I don't think that they're first, and they need to be first. Okay. Going along with that, I know last time I was up here, I was pretty upset because I found out that there was a bunch of drawings for a village center district being passed around and shown to people at MyFest. I was not there. But I had a couple people tell me that, and then I had many more people tell me that, many people. So it had to have happened. Now, here's the concern for me. I'm on the Economic Development Commission headed by Trustee Pieper, who probably knew because these were all discussed in closed session, but hold on, my 3 minutes. But none of us on the commission, none of the commissioners knew anything about it. None of the commissioners outside of trustees on the Plan Commission knew anything about it, okay? So this is not the secret society. If we're going to do development in this village, we need to get the people engaged. And the people, yes, include trustees, but we are people too that are not elected officials. So I have no idea why that happened and why everything was in closed session for a year and a half, and then drawings were shown at MyFest, okay? A beer tent's not a neighborhood meeting. You should know that, President Walter. Also, I asked my 2 trustees, you know who you are, or President Walter, to call me and explain this to me. I have yet to receive a phone call, an email, or anything. So apparently, if I can't get an answer from you, how can anyone else that comes here? Okay, I'm asking that I deserve a call from one of my trustees or President Walter in regard to this incident. And trying to be helpful here, there is a handout from UW-Stevens Point, Center for Land Use Development, acronym CLUE. I handed one out packet to all of you. It shows you how to run public meetings, a matrix for doing development, 30-some pages. I used my own resources to print it off. This is a guideline for you. There are resources to use. You just don't have to do anything in private. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
Mr. Heffley, can you resend that email to me? I never got it.
I think it was at the last meeting. I don't think it was an email. I think it was part of the citizen input discussion. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Right. I yield some time to him. Why not? All right, Sarah Larson, Butternut Road. I am newly elected to the library board, and so I am here tonight to support their ask for the matching funds for the grant. I was very impressed in my first meeting with them. They clearly have done a lot of due diligence and have their ducks in a row. It's going to be a very tight time frame, and so I really encourage the board to support that. I think what I've been seeing in meetings that I've been coming to is you can find money for things that are not necessities. And you were able to cut the library budget and cut Parks and Rec. And so just to kind of weigh this out a little bit, if you can spend $1 million and overpay for a property that you can't tell the public what the use is, that you didn't have an intended use for it, potentially going to pay approximately maybe $250,000 to a resident for an easement, probably for a trail that doesn't have any necessity. And then you're going to allocate $140,000 of ARPA funds for a study, or actually, I don't even know what the $140,000 for the trail is, maybe the cost of the trail. And then $231,000 for a study of that trail that isn't a necessity. I think you can come up with the matching funds to provide a true service to the community. And so I ask that you support them when that comes up on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
Another slip in or did we really?
Good turn.
My name is Jason Jaguar. My address is W202 N10462. Just want to chime in briefly about her for her tree problem. I was the one that went out to her house. And there's all kinds of animosity between her neighbor anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I called out there and she only responded one time and I called many times. And again, I said it should be cut by the trunk because we don't know where the lot line is exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And because that could damage a tree cutting it in that area. That's why I didn't do it. And she never responded to me that I could do it there, not do it there.
Right, and that's what I want to make clear, that
That's-
she's
that's
allowing
fine.
somebody on her property to cut it properly, and if not, then it's going to have to be on a judgment call on the lot line.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to monkey around because of what's going on. And like, if something happens to the tree, then you hold me accountable and I wasn't.
Mhm.
trying to, you know.
Understand?
Okay. Those of you that said this earlier, I apologize. But here again, to ask about the level of noise for the outside venue at the Das Ballroom. We would like to have a level of noise put on it that is fair to everybody in the neighborhood, as well as Mark at the Das Ballroom. The fact that there is no level of noise and the frequency of it and the duration of time that he can have it from 6 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night is just not conducive for us to have our right to peaceful dwelling in our home. We've been coming for years asking about the same thing. And I understand it's not the crime of the century, but it does affect our neighborhood. And I'm not the only one's got a problem with it. Obviously, I've been vocal about it. There are other neighbors that have a problem as well. And they neglected to come forward for a variety of reasons, but that's kind of on them. The parking area that he has out there, that hasn't been done yet. I understand he just got the approval, but he recently roped it off and to not let anybody park there, which has caused chaos all around the area. They're parking all over the grass. They're parking across the street at the bar or at the gas station. There's 30 some cars out there parked illegally. Called the police about it. Said as long as the owner said it's okay, they can park all over the grass, which is not what we've been told here many times. I understand it's a hybrid area because of where he is in relation to the neighborhood, but there should be some limit put to how many bands he can have outside, the frequency of it in a month. If there's going to be if he wants additional bands out there, you should have to apply for a permit. We shouldn't have to listen to that 3 days a week, 6 months out of the year. It's just infringing on our right to peaceful dwelling. It's just not fair. And I was asking for this to be looked at because the CUP is coming up for the outside license again. and to take this all into consideration when that comes up, so something could be done about it. I mean, we know the ordinance needs to be amended. We were told it was going to be done. It hasn't been done. And we keep coming in asking for some kind of relief. And again, I know it ain't the crime of the century, but why can't we get the relief that we're looking for? I don't understand why it's meeting a dead end for years now. I just think it's unfair. He said that he put the gravel out there to help out the people that didn't walk in mud. It was unsafe to do this, that, and the other, but he closed that off. And he was directing people across the street and watching them walk across. He's not concerned about that safety then, because they're coming to pay him to be there. And it's about monetary. It's not about their safety. I took a bunch of pictures. I've talked to my trustees. I can't speak for them. I believe they understand where we're coming from. I'd like to give these, and you guys can look at them. Sure. Use that as determination going forward.
Go.
My wife read a statement for Tom Steinbeck as well today. I don't have time to do that again, but he has sent the email out, and the fact that he can't be here doesn't mean he's not a concerned citizen, and it should be taken seriously that you can hear the band a mile away. How was not considered to be too loud? How was that not considered to be a nuisance? It's been going on for years, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and there's going to be an accident out there. So many cars parked inappropriately that if there's a fire, nobody's getting out of there. When they're parked side by side and the car in front and the car behind can't move, I just don't see how that's safe. And being told that if the owner says it's okay, that can't be right. If I own a bank and said you can come and rob it, that doesn't make it's okay. So I'm looking for some clarification on what's considered, what is allowed and what's not allowed. Well, if that can, I'm looking to have any kind of information supplied that would help me clarify what's going on and why some things haven't not been done. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Anybody joining us with WebEx? Who's got their hand raised?
No one on WebEx.
Okay, if there's no one else for citizen input, then we can go on to the next item, which is consent agenda. Board?
Make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Where is their consent agenda?
Item A.
Oh.
Minutes of minutes.
All right, item, section 7, item A. We have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion, trustee Pieper?
I was just a little confused why new business item A through K were not put under consent agenda. Since it already went through public safety just earlier. And Attorney Sajak, is it possible that we can approve? I would obviously pull H and I, but is it possible for me to make a motion to approve all of those since we already went through them at public safety?
You can make a motion to approve A through G if the board so chooses.
Well, A through
I
K,
can
taking
answer the
out
second
H and I.
question. I can't answer why it wasn't on consent.
I could probably answer that one.
As it relates to the second one, certainly when we get to new business, if you wanted to make a motion for A through whatever, you obviously can feel free to do that.
Thank you.
The other reason it probably wasn't on consent agenda because it was a meeting before this one and nobody knew if they were all going to vote for it. So the safest thing to do is put it under new business, not knowing how the vote is going to turn out once this has
Understood.
been posted. So that would be the reason. And if I'm misspoken, Madam Clerk can clarify.
That's correct. Just, not knowing how the public safety vote, we just felt it safe to go that route.
I hear you.
Your mic's not on. Thank you.
Did everyone hear that explanation? So the reason why this was placed under new business is these items just literally went before the public safety at 5:30 PM. So not knowing how the public safety would vote on those items, it was our decision to place them under new business. Thank you for the question, Trustee Pieper.
All right, further discussion on the motion to approve consent agenda. No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. That then takes us to new business, starting with new business item A. Trustee Pieper.
I make a motion to approve new business A, B, C, D, E, F, G, J, and K.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve new business items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, J, K,
That's it.
and we have a second on that. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Hudson?
Don't we also want H in there? We do not want H.
Figured I'd pull it because there's been enough.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to approve? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Jan Miller. Snuck it right under the bell.
I would yield to our village clerk that would like to, wanted, because we didn't know the outcome of these, to go through them individually. It won't take long.
And we already went through them individually during public safety. They were approved. So then it would be under consent agenda had the meeting happened earlier than just right prior to this one.
Correct. But it did. So I would.
And it was approved at public safety,
I
all of them.
understand. I
Trustee
understand.
Pieper? Let her, she has the floor. Let her speak and then you can respond once she's completed. Trustee Jan Miller?
So therefore, I would just like to go through them quickly, one by one. Thank you.
Is that a motion?
No, that's just
There'd be a
discussion.
motion.
I didn't hear a motion in there. All I heard was discussion and a point of view. Trustee Pieper, anything to respond?
There's a motion and a second. We should vote on it.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion to approve items A, B, C, D, E, F, J, I'm sorry, F, G, J, and K? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed? Motion carries. That then takes us to new business item G. Item H. Item H, 2024-2025 applications for renewal of retail alcohol beverage licenses.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Baum, seconded by trustee
Doesn't matter.
Pieper. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Baum?
Donna, can you explain what you explained to us at public safety related to why certain establishments are not going to be on this list anymore?
Absolutely.
I'll come to this one, so I'm kind of facing you with some eye contact. Okay, so what was explained at the prior meeting, at the public safety meeting, is that the new Wisconsin Act 73 that was put into place in 2023 now affects the 24-25 renewal period. And what those impacts are is that the breweries and wineries are no longer required to apply for their brewery permit or winery permit at local municipality level. So because most all of you have been serving on the board, probably were wondering where is Old Germantown listed and why isn't our Apple Winery listed on here? And I wanted to give a very thorough explanation to our public safety that has also been seeing these renewals quite some time. And with our police and fire department doing building inspections of these premises and not seeing an application for our chief of police to approve and or deny a recommendation thereof, though they're not on that list, you're not going to see them on the attached list for the approval process because they have to go through the Department of Revenue to apply for a state permit. Additionally, what I provided, the details as it relates to the extended premise So again, when the applicants apply for an extension of premise, that is so that their patrons can go outside of their four walls of their building to be able to consume beverages on a patio or deck or green space that is approved by the Public Safety and the Village Board. All of the applications that were submitted for this renewal period did not have any changes to their existing outdoor premise expansions, okay? Now, the Act 73 for that winery and brewery, when they are going through the state to apply for them, any additional license that the winery or brewery would want to obtain would also now have to go through the state. That includes the premise extension of premise. Once they go through the Department of Revenue for the premise expansion, the Department of Revenue agent I hope, this is very new, this is the first time it's happening, that my conversations with the Department of Revenue agent is how is this going to work? Because here in Germantown and most communities that offer extension of premise, it is decided between our boards as to what premise extension we're going to allow and permit, and if we're going to place any conditions on it. How is it going to work now that they have to apply with you when some of these businesses here in Germantown already have conditions of their premise? I was advised by the Department of Revenue agent that specifically works in Washington County for this territory, that it was an application that would go through them. And if approved, then they would, of course, consider the local municipalities and let us know, and then we can kind of go from there. But again, this is very new. We'll see how the process works. But the Wisconsin Act 73, again, you're no longer going to see the breweries. You're no longer going to see the wineries coming before us for the approval process. They are attained by the state. The amount of money for those applications would go through the state. I don't know the state fee, but for the winery or for wine, it would have been 100, and then for the beer, or I'm sorry, the brewery would have been 100. So do you have any questions about any of that?
So if you're listed as a brewery or a winery, and if you would have a level of entertainment or a venue for entertainment that we don't have any say in the use and the number of events or anything to do with that portion of their license?
So the completely two different things. So the extended premise is, again, just to be able to allow an additional space outside of those four walls to be able to consume beverages. But as it relates to entertainment, that's still at our local municipal level. Any additional licenses that they would want to apply for, if they wanted to apply for beer or if they wanted to apply for wine, liquor, it would all have to go through the state. They're in charge now of all of the applications, including the extended premise. However, music and, the times that we might want to set on that is all still at the local municipal level, as I understand it. So we still have local control over that.
Right, so that's
Would you-
why I asked the question, so everyone understands that there's not a loophole there available for them. It still has our approval for anything that has an outside venue.
It's my understanding that we are still in control of if we want to set conditions about music, bands, times, otherwise. This is just as it relates to how far, I guess, on the premise they want to allow the consumption of the beer or the consumption of the wine, but not local control over the events or music that would take place.
Okay.
Is that how you understand it, Attorney Sadak?
It is.
Thank you.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Can you speak to this is a liquor license. It's either beer, wine, liquor. So how it doesn't speak to any type of music, does it, on the premise? When you get an outdoor premise liquor license, does it speak to anything about music.
So let me just clarify, to your point, trustee Jan Miller, there are, as you stated, different classes of licenses. This is not a liquor license. Liquor is vodka, tequila, rum. This is brewery beer. And we
Got it.
have wine and you have, so it's not liquor, but it doesn't matter if you are just serving beer, if you're serving liquor, if you're serving, it doesn't matter between fermented malt beverages or vodka. Anyone can apply for an extended premise to be able to consume that fermented malt beverage or liquor outside on that extended, outside of those four walls, okay? It has nothing to do with music or cornhole or volleyball. It only states that the extended premise is just to allow consumption of the beverages outside of the four walls. And when they initially apply here for the Village of Germantown pursuant to our Chapter 12, a first-time applicant that wants to have an extended premise list all of the additional things, maybe the band, the music, or whatever, and that goes before the Village Board and Public Safety at its initial approval process. But that is separate of consumption of the extended premise. The music and everything above that is separate and above and beyond.
Okay, so just for an example, let's just say it is not the brewery or the winery, but it is just the regular, let's say, food, and they just want to extend their food, like Mateo's. They just want to have an outside patio and they want to have, but they also want to have music. So right now, the way the village has its ordinances and licensing, any of these outside premise is only particularly talking about the beverage, the adult beverage consumption on the outside premise. Is that correct?
Village Attorney, would you like to, I can respond, but I think basis on the ordinance, I want to refer to Attorney Sadak.
In short, no, that's not correct. The code, and I'm just pulling it up here, does talk about when you issue an outdoor premise extension, that there can be limits. Basically that no alcohol beverages shall be served or consumed, and no amplified sound or outdoor lighting other than customary safety and security lighting shall be permitted, except as may be authorized by the village board. And so the board, at the time it grants the license for the outdoor premises, can put limitations that might be in place, as long as they're found to be necessary to minimize the impact to surrounding uses. That's what the code on outdoor premises talks about.
What's the number on that, please?
It is 12.02, sub 7, sub Q.
Q and what?
Sub 7, sub
Sub
Q.
7, sub Q.
7Q. Thank you.
Other questions? Trustee Rick Miller.
A question about, I know we only have two right now that fall under this, a winery and a brewery. So if they apply, I'm just doing a hypothetical here, if they apply for a Class B liquor license, they want to start selling grain alcohol in their facility, there's a per capita limit of the amount of licenses in the village, right? Does this get included in that per capita since they're applying to the state, or is that outside of the per capita then?
So and that was raised earlier, so thank you for the question. But again, anything that is additionally being applied for, so if a brewery wants to apply for the liquor or apply for the wine, they all now have to apply through the state for those additional licenses. Perfect example of that is Old Germantown, who we know is the brewery. They had wine. Now they are required pursuant to the Department of Revenue in this new Act 73 to apply through them. As it relates to liquor, every state or every municipality across the state of Wisconsin has a quota that is set for their community. So I would imagine, and because this is so new, that it is going to require the the license, even though they have to apply through the state, it would be most likely the liquor license availability here in our community, which, as you mentioned, is on a quota.
Yeah.
So currently in the village of Germantown, there are 2 reserve licenses. Every one of our regular licenses are spoken for. And we talked about this before at Public Safety. I will just briefly give you a description of what is the difference. The difference is across the state of Wisconsin, there was an initial mathematical equation that was set many years ago on how many liquor licenses could be given to a municipality. It was based on population. So every community starts out with a certain number, which they are referred to as regular licenses. And liquor is the only thing and only license that has a quota, a number, meaning beer, fermented malt beverages, and wine are unlimited, okay? The law recently changed that said the people that had a restaurant were the only ones that could qualify for a wine license, and that would be a Class C. That has since changed. So the mathematical equation, every single community across the state of Wisconsin is going to be different because population varies in every single jurisdiction. So currently in the village of Germantown, we have 2. That only changes to get more by the population increase. Your population has to increase by 500 to obtain additional liquor license, and that is not easy. You do not lose liquor licenses once you get them based on reduction of population. You keep them, but you have to grow by 500 in order to get an additional one. The village of Germantown has been sitting, on those, it's not growing, at a 500 rate for quite some time. And then the Department of Revenue sets what that fee is at its minimal fee. However, you could charge $100,000 for it. That was a recent case in the village of Green, or not village, but in Green Bay. So, it is minimal amount of $10,000. And our quota is currently all regular licenses are spoken for, and we only have the 2 regular available, or the 2 reserves.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, further discussion on the motion to approve. Thank you, Madam Clerk. No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is item I, 2024 through 2025 applications for renewal of annual outside premise extension licenses.
Motion to approve new business item
Aye.
I.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Baum.
I have a problem with this one because we don't really have a application that truly defines what the outdoor space is, how many people can be out there, parking associated with it, the toilet requirements associated with it. So we've got businesses that have a large area, they're filling it up with people, but they're not adhering to the rest of our codes. So until we have that type of information on all these businesses, I'd like to hold off on voting on this.
Can you clarify that a little bit? Meaning that you're looking for a change in ordinance, or?
First off, I'd like the application updated so that it tells the village what is the size of the area that you are going to expand outside in. Is it a 20 by 20 deck? Is it 30 acres of yard?
Mm.
If you have 30 acres of yard, how many people are going to be out there? How many cars are those people going to have? Where are those cars going to park? What toilet facilities are those people going to use? That's what I'd like to know going forward.
Well, my understanding of the outside the premise extension is that they do have to provide a diagram as to where it is and put the size of what that area is to be currently. So the first point that you had, which was the size of, or the designation of where it's going to be, that I thought was always part of, at least when I was on public safety, part of that extension request. Is that true, Madam Clerk?
So we have, I don't know if you're able to log into the Village of Germantown website where you can look at the current application to see what that looks like in front of you, Trustee Baum. Otherwise, I have a copy in one of our enclosed applications where you can look at it. But as previously discussed at the public safety meeting, I don't disagree that the form needs to be revised, and it's something that I have on my plate to discuss with our village attorney. But would you like to take the look at the current copy that I have in my hand?
Sure, I'll look at that. If you could pass it down, that'd be great.
Question I have for village attorney, if I understand trustee Baum's point is you're looking for a new application to be filled out this year for everybody that's looking for an extension?
Yes, that is what I would like to see.
Village attorney, and with those that already have filled out the applications and are part of the consideration and gone through public safety, I imagine most of them, can we do that? Can we change an application and then demand that the new application then be put into place for the current year?
I would say probably not, and certainly not as it relates to a renewal where folks, have already been granted the license and you're just re-upping what they've otherwise had. I'm not sure that that's appropriate short of, some directive, prior to the application period that would take place. Anybody who's filed the application, certainly would have an argument under the law that would say that they've got, vested rights in that application, that they've submitted it based on the requirements that were in place at the time that they applied.
So when an application comes forward and it says outdoor deck, green space in rear, how much is that? How big is that?
Madam Clerk?
Great question, Trustee Baum. Again, these applications were approved before my time here. And I think that's just a very short synopsis of what the original application entailed, where they were required to provide a full detailed map with the location and parameters. And again, what they're asking for also has to be submitted with the plan, hopefully with an aerial view. In addition to, the notices go out to neighbors within 300 feet to advise them that this request is being made. And it's much more detailed in its original application. We are merely only renewing what already exists and was already approved before these boards before my time. I specifically had my staff and myself pose the question to each applicant. In fact, one of our applicants is here in the audience, and asking, are there any changes at all to the extended premise? I mean, even if you've added an additional bistro table to your outdoor seating, I need to know about it. And if there were any yeses to that response, then I consider that to be an original application where I want those 300 feet notices being sent, and I want a revised approval from both boards. That would, to me, be considered a new application because we're not renewing what wasn't. I want to renew exactly what currently is. Each of the applications submitted are currently as they are on their license today, but we can certainly make sure for the next licensing period that we have time for our applicants to submit the new application and go through the new protocol, if that's okay.
Trustee Pieper?
My concern with this is if we do not approve this, they expire June 30th. So are we going to really do that to all of these businesses in Germantown? We're not going to renew their premise extensions,
I don't think
especially
anybody's-
when we're coming up to the 4th of July?
My concern with the request is that could we certainly email the revised application? Absolutely. And however, I would have to give them a pretty strict deadline in order for me to get the licenses created and they have them hung as per statute by the July 1st date. But if it's, the order of this board, I will certainly make sure we work overtime to get it done.
But just to clarify, we do have one more village board meeting before July, before they would expire.
Correct.
You would not be able to get all of your duties done in that time. We'd be asking you to work overtime and other staff in order to make this happen. In addition, we don't even know if this is legal, that we can go back and have them modify their applications. So,
Well, it's legal because it's an in-house application. So just to confirm again, not every single community across the state of Wisconsin allows an extended premise application. This is not Department of Revenue application. This is an in-house Village of Germantown application. And these boards and committees are the approving body to say whether they allow it or not. So again, they're in-house applications, but in order for me and my staff to modify the applications with some of the things that Trustee Baum wants to see on there, which I agree with, I think that that needs to happen. I feel like our time frame is short at best for me to be able to get a hold of every single applicant and advise for this to be submitted within that time period.
absolutely, and I agree. And then the legality of going back to the people who we already took their application, we've been renewing it, and then now we're going to say, I'm sorry, we're changing the application. Now you need to fill out this one. The stress that it would put on staff here, on businesses, to me, it is ridiculous.
Trustee Chan Miller.
I see I believe it's the front page and the back page, there are approximately 20 of the outside premise, 20 of these outside premise licenses that we're taking a look at right now. What my concern is I agree with Trustee Baum. There's not enough information, and we have some, as we heard tonight, I think there are one or two of these businesses that are on this list that may have an issue. And in this little box up on top, it says, additional permits or approvals may be required by other departments. In other words, sign permits, temporary use permits, building permits, electrical permits, and they're responsible for obtaining that. So when you brought these forward, did you go to these other departments to make sure they didn't have any violations? That's my question.
So every department that needed to be involved, so our community development and our building inspections department, to make sure everything is for the renewal process. Prior to us issuing the license, as Trustee Pieper alluded to earlier, we are going to have these licenses in the mail prior to June 30th, so they receive them in time. They have until we create those licenses to advise us. At the time of this meeting, at the time of this question, I don't have anything other than what you see for the fees of contingent upon some fees being owed. Outside of that, there are no additional comments.
And that's based on all the other departments
For
reporting.
the two other departments I specified. So when we say all other departments, the only other permits that would need to be obtained would be from our planning department, or if there's anything outstanding with our building inspection department. Like this would not go to Park and Rec. It wouldn't go.
Right.
Okay.
But it could go to the finance department for back tax.
Right. And so yes, finance department, what my staff and I did is we sent out an email just advising we are in the license renewal period. Pursuant to our code, we can hold a liquor license, a beer license, a wine license, whatever licenses that they are applying for. We can hold them if any of these fees are outstanding or any of these things are not complied with, which is some of the things that you see on your list before you. At the time of this meeting, we are only waiting for two of the businesses that are on your entire list that are not compliant, that are aware, that have been in communication with us, and that will, that seem to are making all the efforts to reconcile this.
And one of them is the Bixenberg Tavern.
Correct.
Who's the other one?
For them, we have in our code that we can charge a late fee if they're not submitting the applications back by renewal time. And that is, I believe, for Walmart,
Walgreens.
or I'm sorry, Walgreens. Yes, so Walgreens was very late in getting their submittal back to us. And pursuant to our code, that late fee is $100.
So what if there's and this is my last question, what if there's a violation of the CUP? That's the community development.
I'll defer to Attorney Sadak.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a CUP, issue would be a community development, related thing. Whether or not that would be sufficient to hold up a, outdoor premises extension, I guess would depend on, what specifically, what component of a CUP and what the CUP was for.
Like parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if we would just want to like jump right to the one that everybody wants to talk about, then let's do
Let's
that.
do it.
Which is, number one, you have to remember that the CUP has nothing to do with the fact that there is a bar there. The bar is permitted there by use, by code. The CUP is expressly because they have extra parking that's on a property that isn't their own. So they have the little parking lot that's on the parcel that's just to the south, if you will. And that's why they have the CUP. They likely, based on the evidence that we have, need to either amend or to update that CUP to address the fact that they now have parking across the street at the BP as well. That's something that, is part of what's going on.
And the parking lot with the gravel that's next door was put down illegally, correct? They didn't have a permit.
Right, and that's something that they've gone through the planning commission to address and deal with. They've got a plan that's been approved, and they're working at and doing that. I don't know what the current status is, but I do know that they are, that they've got a plan that's been approved and they're moving forward.
They have to come back to the plan commission next Monday for final review.
Well, then, I think that I'd like to make a motion that that we pull the Das Barrel Room outside premise extension until the plan commission meeting and the outcome. It's an amendment to the motion.
We have a motion to amend. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to amend. Trustee Hudson.
So Attorney Sajak, could you put this into tiny little words so I can understand what we're looking at here, please?
Meaning what specifically? The motion
So-
or?
So we are amending the original motion. So for 19 of these, if we were to vote to support, we would renew for 19.
Mhm.
And for Das Barrel Room, that would be contingent upon what, please?
Based on my understanding of the motion, it would be contingent upon getting the plan commission approval of the final plan that they've proposed. As President Walter suggested, they're coming back on Monday to get their final approval on what they've proposed.
You basically have to show a more permanent structure to keep people within the lot that they're proposing. And we have to see that before it can move forward. But they have approval on the parking lot itself. It's just a way to keep people from going beyond it.
Don't they have?
If Trustee Hudson is complete, I can,
Thank you.
this is on the motion to amend?
Yeah, it's a
Trustee
question,
Kaminsky?
question about this. So what the plan commission is going to do on Monday is finalize the parking lot and the parking space and the containment. However, this is approving the fact that they can have outdoor premise, correct? I mean,
Correct. The item that is before the board this evening is the
so
outdoor.
they can have the outdoor premise, and then the plan commission can come back and approve or disapprove how they're handling what came up at the last meeting, essentially. The parking and that type of thing. So I just, to me, they're not really, they brush together, but they're not locked together in relation. They're going to have outdoor premise no matter what, and the plan commission can change that, correct? Even if we approve this tonight?
That's correct.
Correct. There's nothing that prohibits an outdoor premises on this particular location.
So if we approve it, we simply approve it, so they can continue doing business even beyond June 30th. If something should happen and the plan commission doesn't meet or doesn't address this issue on Monday, and the plan commission can still come back and say, you have to do X, Y, and Z, and they have to do it. I don't understand why we wouldn't approve it.
Further discussion on the motion to amend. Trustee Hudson.
So for ease of understanding, does it not make more sense to deal with 19 of these in one group motion and to segregate the one that we're all having the challenge with?
You
Or At
can,
least some of us, excuse me, are having the challenge
We
with.
got to vote on
you
that.
could make a motion to vote on the 19 and then make a separate motion to discuss and segregate the one for Das Barrel Room.
But I don't think I'm able to do that, am I?
Not at the moment, because we have a motion to amend currently on the floor.
Thank you.
Further,
Can we restate the motion to amend, please?
can you restate the motion to amend?
Okay, you're asking me.
Yeah, we're looking.
Well, whoever.
It's asking you.
Turn the microphone.
Still typing it.
Well, Jan, you can restate your motion to amend, can't you?
She wanted to amend it to take it, and to make the decision after it went before Plan Commission at its meeting.
For the Das Barrel Room. Correct.
So you were looking to
Segregated.
segregate the Das Barrel Room and wait for their approval for their outside extension until after next week's plan commission meeting.
So it kind of does what you were saying. It segregates it if that's what you were looking for.
Well, I think he was looking for a different reason.
I'm looking for
Yeah,
a different reason.
different
That's
reason.
correct.
Can I amend my amendment?
It gets confusing, but sure. Why don't we just vote on it?
And just vote.
Right.
Okay.
Further discussion on a motion to amend? No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Aye. Did we have one in favor? No. One in favor. All right, motion fails. Back to the motion. Further discussion. Trustee,
Moment for clarification. Jane Miller, trustee
Yeah.
Jane Miller, you were opposed to that, correct?
Stone, she was in favor.
Okay.
She was the one in favor. Got it.
Only one in favor, trustee Jane Miller, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion.
And so what is the motion, please?
The motion is as it's currently on our agenda, which is right now for the 2024-2025 applications for renewal of annual outside premise extension licenses.
I would like to amend the motion to segregate Das Barrel Room and vote on that separately.
A second.
Okay, motion made to amend and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed? Two opposed? Motion carries. Now back to the motion as amended. First, we vote on the 19.
Let's take that order, yeah.
Let's just do, if that's okay, Village President, to just do it per the attached list with the,
Mike.
with that one removed.
Okay.
For the-
Yeah.
If you don't mind, that just makes it much easier.
Sure. So the motion to amend is to vote on the 19 licenses and remove the Das Barrel Room license for annual outside premise extension to talk about separately. And the second on that was whom? Okay, trustee Jan Miller. And that's okay with the second? All right, good. Further discussion on that motion? So we'll be voting for the 19. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Now back to Das Barrel Room, outside premise extension.
I'll begin. I make a motion to approve Das Barrel Room and premise extension.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Hudson.
So here's what we've got going on with Das Barrel Room, and it's been going on for approximately 2 years now. So we have a mini summer fest every single weekend, three nights a week. There is music at Das Barrel Room. And the stage is pointed back into a residential neighborhood. We've been able to afford the citizens that have come forward. We have been unable to address any of their concerns while accommodating I'm going to do it now and ask for forgiveness later attitude. And I think at this point in time, and I can tell you, I've been out there on several occasions. I have audio and video on my phone. That if I lived across the street, I probably would have put my house on the market and moved out of the village of Germantown. The music, and I'm not the music is fine. I mean, it's not a quality issue. It's just the fact that during the summertime, there's music on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, if it's a nice night, until 10 p.m. And that means there are 50 or 60 or 70 outdoor concerts every single year. And when I use the word concerts, I mean that because it has been at concert volume. And I think that at this point in time, it's incumbent upon the business owner to come up with a plan and address the concerns that the neighbors have brought forth. So far, to my knowledge, he has completely ignored and been unwilling to even engage in dialogue and afford our neighbors any consideration. While at the same time, bending laws so he can make as much money as he possibly can. And all that I am asking for is that we do not renew this outdoor extension until we get a plan as to how this business is going to address repeated concerns for the citizens that live here and pay our taxes. Because it's been going on for 2 years with no relief. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
Further discussion on the motion? Trustee Kaminsky.
I have a question. They have a conditional use permit, am I correct? To be able to do this?
No.
Or they don't?
Conditional use permit is
For the parking
solely
lot.
because they have a parking lot on the neighboring park.
Okay,
The bar, the restaurant, the outdoor premises are again all allowed under the code for that location.
okay, so is it up to us or the plan commission to essentially make changes in this?
Well, so, right, so as we talked about with that 12.06 or 2 or sub 7 sub Q, certainly the code contemplates that you can impose conditions that are found necessary to minimize the impact of such use upon surrounding properties, including limiting the dates and times of operation, requiring technologically reasonable steps to minimize noise and other impacts. So you can do that. Now, the trick here is because it's a renewal, it's not entirely clear how that happens. My recommendation to do it the safe way is that if you wanted to make a change to the approval that's in place that they're seeking renewal of, that would really require us to go through what we would call a non-renewal process, basically hold a due process hearing, at which point this body could then impose conditions or even non-renew that license as part of that. That's the safest way to protect us. And I say that it protects us because I have two concerns. One is that there's a federal case out of Green Bay that talks about the fact that liquor licenses are property rights. And so if you're going to revoke somebody's property right, you need to have that due process hearing. Okay, so we follow that process. The other one is that when you start dealing with music and performances, that you tread into First Amendment issues, because music and performances are speech ultimately. And there again, you want to A, tread lightly, and B, if you're going to revoke somebody's ability to do that, you're going to want to have that due process hearing to make sure that you are affording every possible right to the process. And so if the thought is that we want to do that, then the recommendation really would be to change the motion to make a referral to our office to commence the non-renewal process to go through that public hearing.
How long does that take?
Well, we're currently planning to have two of those hearings well, at least one for sure. I'm not sure if the other one formally withdrew or not, but we've got two that basically we're looking at doing non-renewals on for different reasons of just a regular liquor license. And those we're planning on having at the next board meeting. Certainly we could look to do it at the next board meeting. Potentially we could hold a special meeting. I know that there is, for example, one trustee who is not going to be at the next meeting and probably really would prefer to be involved in whatever ultimate decision was made. So we might look at maybe scheduling a special meeting to hold that hearing. And, we could get it done certainly this month without too much of a concern.
Well, I guess my concern here is I know there are a lot of issues with the noise specifically. Parking is supposedly being handled by the Plan Commission, and they'll revisit that on Monday. And I can't see us, I want to find that balance where June 30th is coming up quick. I am not in the job of putting people out of business or limiting their ability to do business in Germantown. I do not want to come down with a sledgehammer on something that requires maybe a tack hammer. I think if this gentleman who owns this establishment, I assume it's a man, I don't know, but if the people who own this establishment understand that this is this serious, I still would have no problem of keeping them in business and renewing their permit and then calling them up here. I mean, can it be done that way? Can we renew this permit and then put stipulations on it at a future board meeting, or is that not possible?
I mean, certainly at any point that you felt that there was violations that warranted it, you could do a revocation hearing, just like you would do a non.
So there's no in between. It's either revoke or,
What's the hearing, the
Yeah.
process? Right.
and, or at that hearing, you'd say, these are the changes that we require. You haven't listened to us, and over and out. Well, it looks like that might be the way it has to go.
Rather it go that way.
Currently, the motion is to approve. Trustee Warren, did you have your hand up earlier?
Yeah, about a half hour ago.
Well, the motion changed a couple times in between that. But is it still relevant to the current motion?
Not really, but I'd like to just weigh in with what the attorney had said, and I support the revocation procedure. I like to approve it now, follow those steps, and then get into the revocation procedure and address the issues of noise and parking and everything else, following the due process way of doing it, just to protect us. And you talk about First Amendment rights. I don't want to tread on that either. So I would vote in favor of this now, and then we can look into this revocation procedure at a later date.
Is that how the process should work, that we would approve it now and then bring forward the revocation hearing, or we just bring forward the revocation hearing in the midst of the approval of the renewal?
I think the best way to do it would be to just do a non-renewal hearing, which is effectively the same hearing.
Right.
But the reason for that is that if we renew the license today,
Mhm.
and then I start a revocation proceeding tomorrow.
Not good.
One, I'm revoking the license that currently exists, not
Yeah.
the future license. And so you have that issue that really we'd have to wait until
mhm.
after the first anyway, because that's when the next license is in place. I do worry that if you were to get challenged and you go to court, that one of the arguments that could be made that a judge may be sympathetic to is, you just granted him the license. What do you mean you're revoking it now? There's a process that you can deal with it otherwise, and you should have just dealt with it during that process instead of issuing the license and then trying to revoke it right away. It's the same hearing, it's the same process. It's just a different word that you're, fitting into the mix.
Okay. Trustee Baum.
What conditional use do they have just to use the parking on the other property?
Yes.
They do not have a conditional use for an outside premises extension?
No,
Correct.
that's part of this.
But what I'm renewing is an outside premises that I already have. I'm lost as to, do we have outside premises and we're in violation of that? Or do we not have outside premises?
They have an outside premises
Okay,
that has, based on experience, created concerns with certain elements within the community.
yes.
And that is the violation, that you have a code provision that says you don't get outdoor music as part of your outdoor premises extension unless it's approved. And it's been approved. We've given them that ability. And we're now looking to say, well, maybe we didn't mean carte blanche, but we want to limit it in some way.
Or change it.
Does it become conditional use at that point?
No.
Conditional use is a planning term that has
Okay.
nothing to do with.
So we just set new rules essentially. Okay,
Or as extension,
yeah.
outside premise extension.
Yeah.
Trustee Hudson.
Yeah, so I want to clarify a couple of comments that have been made. So I am certainly not looking to put this gentleman out of business, and I wish him all the success in the world. And I would hope that his business is structured, and apparently it is structured for 6 months out of the year where he doesn't need to sell and have alcohol consumed outside, because the indoor Class B application has been approved. And in the wintertime, he also has bans inside.
Mhm.
And there is no problems or challenges with that.
As long as he doesn't open the doors, yeah.
Yes, correct. And to my knowledge, we don't get complaints in the winter. The challenge that we have is he is somewhat of a victim of his own success.
Mm-hmm.
And the attendees are outdrawing the outdoor capacity of the venue. And that is evidenced, and any of us can go see it, and I have, if you drive out there between 7 PM and 10 PM on a decent Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. There is room for compromise here. And he has had 2 years to propose some type of compromise.
Emailed it to us.
I have not received an email from him where he has said, I'll do 6 concerts or 6 shows. That's what I'm talking about. But to my knowledge, that hasn't been presented. And other than from this outdoor extension, I don't know any other way to address repeated concerns from our citizens and our taxpayers.
Right, but we can't.
As far as I'm concerned, they deserve it.
Right, so we would go through the denial process, through the hearing. Would be the only way to,
So who
we
made
couldn't
the,
say tonight that we deny this license or outside extensions because it's a renewal. We would have to go through the renewal denial process.
Did I make the original motion?
What's the current motion?
Did I?
Motion is to approve. Made by trustee Peeper.
Okay,
Okay.
I second it. I changed my mind.
Trustee Rick Miller.
Just a clarification. So if we do deny it now, does that automatically start the renewal revocation process?
In my opinion, if you just denied it outright, you're gonna get sued and you're gonna lose.
So we need an amendment to the motion.
Mhm.
Make amendment to the motion to begin the renewal revocation process for Das Barrel Room.
Second.
Motion
So
made to amend and seconded. Discussion, trustee Peeper.
for clarification's sake, will he still be able to use, or will the premise extension, pretty much all it means is people can have a drink outside. That's all it means. Has nothing to
No,
do
he
with the
he
music.
can sell outside too.
Outside the walls, yeah.
Yeah,
Within the confines of what he's defined as outside extension to be. Yes.
so if this motion, the amendment that trustee Miller just made right now gets approved,
Mhm.
does that mean he can sell drinks and have drinks outside for the rest of this month?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Then what happens as of July 1st?
It depends on what comes out of the hearing
Hearing.
And the hearing,
And
yeah.
the hearing will be when?
next, not next Monday, but the Monday after.
So in 2 weeks, at the end of June.
Be the 17th.
And Donna, does this put you in a predicament?
No, we'll make it work.
You're being kind.
We already have one scheduled for that night.
Just for clarification purposes for the audience too.
Your mic's not on.
Excuse me, when Attorney Sadak was saying we possibly would have two, one of them has confirmed that they will not be renewing. So then on that evening, we would have then the two, the Das Barrel Room and the other. So we
Okay.
can make that. I want to get clarified for the meeting minutes, however, the trustee, Rick Miller, you made the motion to amend to begin the renewal revocation process for Das Barrel Room. I did not get who seconded that.
Trustee Hudson.
Thank you.
Okay.
Trustee
And-
Peeper, you still have the floor.
Yep, just, I know I received a comment today from Jeff Retzloff saying that all the violations have pretty much been taken care of, except I'm looking for it, the parking lot expansion. But he says that it looks like everything is gonna go through for that and approved. And also that the owner of Das Barrel Room says he would like to move the stage and have the sound be directed to the southeast to help address the sound noise level issues. To me, that is not saying that he has not done anything. I've spoken to him in person and he would love nothing more than to work this out one-on-one.
So and I
Trustee Peeper, are you?
I know that for a fact, yes.
Okay, and that's not my question.
He's
Is-
not an unreasonable man.
All right, so if trustee Hudson wants to reply to that, are you willing to give the floor to him? You
Sure.
Still have the floor. Okay, trustee Hudson.
Now he's being.
So he's had 2 years to work it out one-on-one and we've gotten nowhere. And so I'd just like to point that out. We've gone around and around and there's been no progress. He's had the opportunity. Secondly, and I apologize for saying this, we've heard promises from him in the past that have come to naught. And at this point in time, I can't cash his promises anymore. Again, I think our citizens deserve to be a part of the solution instead of us betting on somebody's word that may or may not happen, frankly. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to amend, trustee Warren.
So I just want to clarify what this motion is again. So this is a renewal of the denial process, correct?
This is a refusal of it's a hearing. Village attorney, can you put it in the right verbiage, please?
Sure. Basically, it is a motion to, it didn't say that, but I take it to mean that our office will commence the non-renewal process.
So
which will
in
be a hearing.
in the meantime, we're basically renewing his permit
Mm.
as we go through the process?
Nope,
Okay.
right now they have a permit that it goes until the end of the month.
Okay.
That's when all liquor licenses roll over.
And
And so
extensions.
he's able to do what his permit allows through the end of the month, period. We could certainly do a revocation now if you wanted to,
Okay.
but you're revoking it for a couple weeks.
So our approval of this motion revokes it.
No.
No,
What am I
It puts him
missing?
through a hearing to discuss the possible non-renewal of his outside extension.
So it doesn't renew at this time. It
He has
has to
to-
be discussed at a.
Right, he has to
future
come forward and address questions and concerns that this board may have about his outside extension and see if there's an amenable way to work out some of the complaints that are being vocalized as a result of it. And then from that, the board can choose to approve it or approve it with certain changes. Whatever the board decides those changes to be to make it the outside extension more acceptable.
And what's happening to his operation while we're doing that?
Nothing. It exists as it does today until the June 30th.
Yeah, operating as he is now.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for your patience.
Sure. Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, first off, I probably should correct my motion to say non-renewal instead of renewal revocation. Is that better?
yes.
Okay.
I thought so.
Okay, wait a second.
It's okay.
And this tells me though that this renewal hearing, just puts him on notice and says, look, we've got some issues that we want to look at. And he's already got a plan started. We'll review that plan. I fully intend that he's going to come with a pretty good plan and that, when we go through this process that if something crazy happens, without something crazy happening, that we would approve it.
That possibly. I mean,
It's a
up to
possibility,
what
right.
it is, and
But
if
there
it's
will be,
acceptable.
there could be more limitations on it. The next time we'll see what comes out in the hearing.
What
But that's the best way to vet it, in my opinion. We've got the whole board there. We know what the decision is after that hearing.
Further discussion. Trustee Chan Miller.
Um, ri- um, Brian alluded to the fact that there's a trustee that won't be able to make it on the 17th, and can we call a special meeting right now or not? Yeah, we got two people. So if it's kind of a special meeting, so can we have a special meeting later that week or the following Monday?
We can put out a posting after this meeting as to what time
Little
works
cool.
best for board
Right.
members. Sure, with a couple suggestion dates. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That'd be
I mean,
great.
I can tell you that it can't be sooner. No.
No,
I mean, I guess technically it could be. I just don't think I'm going to get it done before then.
no.
And it has to be noticed, correct, for a
The
certain
next
amount of
week,
days?
it has to go to the plan commission. So it should be the 17th or after, I would think. It's
Right.
still enough notice.
Well,
When are you back?
okay, right, you're right. It doesn't have
not.
to be on, it could be after.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, I just wanted to,
right now, so the motion is to go
The
through that
non-renewal.
process. It's a
non-renewal.
motion to
purposes.
amend.
It was seconded.
Right. Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? One opposed? Motion carries. Back to the motion as amended. Further discussion?
State the motion, please.
Motion is now what it was amended to be.
So we're good with that.
Right. But you have to go through the final vote because it was an amended motion. So any further discussion on the motion as amended? No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? One opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so that then takes us down to item L, employee benefit broker contract. And for more information and explanation of this new business item, we have with us Erin Hearn. Erin. And she's still knocking over your water.
I like a.
People have the right to live peacefully. We've been talking for a year.
Yeah, I was listening to your. Okay, thank you, everybody. Like, she wants to speak first.
Okay. Sorry, Aaron. I just wanted to give a quick synopsis of what happened at the General Government and Finance meeting. This came to GGF and we reviewed the recommendation. And we had a little bit of confusion with the numbers and et cetera. So we decided rather than come back to GGF with this, it was going to have to be voted on by the full village anyway, village board anyway. So we moved it on with no recommendation right now. And with that, now I can move it over to Erin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trustee Miller. Okay, so at the beginning of the year, the board gave the village administrator a set of goals to work on throughout the year. And one of them was to put out more RFPs. And so one of them, for services we received. So in our entire relationship with our current benefit broker, we have never gone out for RFP since it was paid on purely by commission. In 2023, R&R received a little over $25,000 for 2 of our benefits. However, there are other 4 benefits that they received what is called a commission override, which is a commission paid to bring a customer over to a specific policy. Using the data from R&R's compensation disclosure, they could be making anywhere up to $65,000 on top of their regular commission. So that's what we currently have right now, and we have had for the past 30 years. So we went through the RFP process. We drafted back in the beginning of February, a draft for the RFP was approved by GGF. It was then opened for proposals from March 5th to April 4th. After that, 3 proposals were received and reviewed by the Wellness Committee, which is made up of employees from each of our core departments: library, police, fire, public works, and park and rec. The committees then conducted a comprehensive discussion on the responses to our proposal using the application format as the guide. The committee then decided to bring both USI and R&R Insurance in for interviews. And after further discussion on costs, services, and interview responses, the committee decided to recommend USI. So there were many things that came out of this discussion. These included the desire for cost transparency and the ability for the commission not to influence their recommendations, having a solid contract that provided an understanding of services as well as the cost of those services. Another interest was their number of resources, which included their amount of expertise and benchmarking data that can provide alignment of what we offer our employees. Some of the additional resources also include participating in the Stop Loss Consortium, which is a pool with over 20,000 Sun Life members, which offers more competitive rates. They have an in-house actuary who will assist with underwriting, budget analysis, plan valuation, future cost liability, and risk analysis. They will also support WRS offered benefits, which is not conducted by our current firm. During USI's presentation, they showed many new communication tools for employees, which include a mobile application, enrollment and new hire onboarding videos, digital e-reader benefit guides, as well as a benefit resource center to field and answer employee questions that may go outside the capability of our staff. USI has also calculated around $237,000 in additional annual savings to the village with new strategies that they will suggest through our onboarding experience. So just to wrap it up, USI offers many benefits, including lower and more transparent costs, better services for village employees, including increased methods of communication and a larger support team, as well as the ability to provide stronger analytics to achieve greater savings. Jacob Syndergaard, who is going to be here tonight, had to be home with his new baby, so he will not be able to answer questions tonight. But I will definitely be able to answer any questions you may have.
Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, so excuse me, I'll start it off. The documentation, I think the confusion at General Government and Finance is when you look at the numbers here, it appears that USI is the highest within our packet.
Correct.
But there's hidden costs, and I'm going to call them hidden costs because we don't really know the commission. It's built into their fee structure and it's built into the premiums.
Correct.
And now this explains it a little bit more where, hey, we may be paying up to $65,000 in addition to that 25 that we're already paying R&R.
Correct.
Whereas USI, flat fee, 35,000 no matter what happens. And that's honestly where the confusion was. And Cottingham and Butler is the same thing, right? There's still some fees that are involved over and above that 30,000 that their proposal was.
Yes, correct. And when we took apart both Cottingham and Butler and R&R's insurance contracts that they provided to us, they were very similar on many respects. So.
Okay.
Trustee Kaminsky.
So this line I'm looking at, according to their compensation disclosure we received for 2023, this compensation could range as high as $65,851 on top of their original commission and is not reported to the municipality. So that's not money we pay.
Correct. It's built within our premiums. So it's not something that's.
So you were saying so you were saying it affects the premium?
Correct.
How much did it affect the premium?
I'm not sure because that's not reported to us. What's reported is just their compensation disclosure, which I do have if you'd like to see.
So are we anticipating premiums going down if we use USI?
I believe that's what the 200 and, sorry, now I have to go back a slide. The 237,000 in additional savings, that's where that would come from, would be the premiums.
So they will save us money on premiums?
On premiums and claims, yes.
And we will absolutely see that next year at this time?
Yes, that is what they are saying. Now, if it's going to be that exact amount, I'm not going to say that verbatim that it's going to be 237, but they say that they can provide us $237,000 worth of savings.
So it's usually in insurance when your premium is lower, your out-of-pocket is higher. So are we looking at is it higher for the employee to what they're paying in?
It's not always to what the employee costs are because we're self-insured. So it really depends on what insurance that we're talking about because we have multiple insurances. Some were self-insured, some were not. So in that aspect, the premium could be the premium for the village or the premium for the employee. But it's not always based on what the employee's premium is, technically.
Okay.
But what the village pays out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Trustee Jan Miller.
So, Aaron, did you go back and find out what we were actually paying R&R for the last couple of years? You said you had that
I went and
data.
found out as much as I could.
Okay.
So some of these costs though, like I was showing in the first slide. So these ones that I have highlighted, those are the commission override costs, which I can't. So basically, these companies, like let's say Sun Life Stop Loss, instead of doing it in a commission through a contract with us, they pay them a commission by all the entities that they work with. So if like 90% of their individuals use the Sun Life Stop Loss, then they get a certain amount of money for how many clients they have on board. So they don't report that amount to us, and it's based on, it fluctuates. So
Right, with it, what their brokerage is going to fluctuate. We never see that.
Right.
But the,
whereas like with UMR, we do see that because it's within our contract of how much commission they get. Whereas this commission override is something that we don't see, but it affects our premiums through that organization. So how much we pay stop or our Sun Life stop loss policy, the amount that the village pays on that is partly because of how much they're giving R&R insurance, you know, because they're paying them. So
I guess if you just net it out though, R&R insurance for the last 30 years, is this USI going to be cheaper for the actual village?
yes.
Is it going to be cheaper for the village employees?
You know,
USI.
I have to go through the process with them. I can't, I don't feel comfortable saying that right now. We would have to go through the process, but I don't think it would cost them any more.
Premium?
And that also has to do with you know, rates fluctuate regardless of what,
You want to
depending on markets. Okay.
But if I could just add, and I think what Aaron has said is correct, that the USI in total costs are going to be lower for the village than what they have been in the past with R&R, because it's going to be a flat fee. It's going to be lower and it's going to be more transparent. When you talk about the actual premiums for employees, that's really based on claims. And the claim data. So if USI, because of their data analytics, is able to do some things that reduce the cost by $237,000, that would probably have a slight impact on employee premium contributions, as well as the village contribution. But we're talking about a total cost of $2 million plus for our employee benefits plan. So it won't be a dramatic change one way or the other.
Oh,
That's still a savings.
But it is still a savings, and I guess, yeah, just as the village president just reminded me, it is still a savings, and when we're in tight budgets, every $100,000 helps.
oh, indeed.
It's a full levy point. Trustee Warren.
So from the employee's perspective, it's going to be different because they've had the old plan for many, many years, right? And so each benefit is going to be a little different.
No, their benefits are going to remain the same.
Okay.
It's just how they're presented, those benefits may change. I mean, I do a lot of the presentation on my end as well, but there's going to be a lot more availability for things to explain their benefits. Their annual review is going to be different. So there's just going to be some processes that are different, but their benefits in general are going to remain the same unless we decide to change them. And then, you know, as
Sure.
the wellness committee will review that and we'll make that decision as a team. And, you know, it will all go through the process before we change anything like that.
I'm sure there'll be some angst with the employees, because it's change.
Yeah,
And
but
that's-
I'm not talking about like changing their health insurance policy or anything like that. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any change would just, yeah, I'm sorry. I'll stop.
Other questions? Trustee Rick Miller.
I'll make a motion to proceed with contract with USI for our benefit brokers starting on July 1st, 2024.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Yeah, and I think the motivating factor for me is that you have a committee of employees that go through this and they like this proposal. It saves us a little bit of money in the overhead, in the management portion of it. So I don't see why why.
And
we
we're
shouldn't
always
do it.
thinking about retention, and this has to do with retention. So they're explaining their benefits and how they feel comfortable with their benefits. I mean, that's all in retention. And so having other avenues of communicating that is very important.
We had a second on that? Trustee Warren was the second. Further discussion on a motion to approve? No further discussion? Do we do roll call on this? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Ketz.
Aye.
Trustee Baum.
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson.
Abstain.
Trustee Peeper.
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Village President Walter.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Aaron. Next item under new business is item M, a resolution in support of and committing matching funds not to exceed $4,250,000 for Germantown Community Library 2024 Flexible Facilities Program grant application for the library's second floor expansion. To give us more information background on this new business item, we'll turn our meeting over to our library director, Tricia Smith. Trish.
Good evening. My name is Tricia Smith, Director of the Germantown Community Library. I am here today to present an opportunity that we were made aware of a few weeks ago involving applying for grant funding. If received, this grant could potentially be used to help fund a second floor expansion and also a first floor renovation to the current Germantown Community Library building. First, just some background information about the grant and its requirements. This is a flexible facility program, FFP grant. It is funded through the U.S. Department of Treasury's Capital Project Fund program, which was established through the American Rescue Plan of 2021, in a sense to be part of the COVID relief federal funding. It will focus on funding projects that enable work, education, and healthcare monitoring in public libraries, community centers, and multi-purpose community facilities. Although grant funding can be used for both libraries and community-type facilities, the application scoring does prioritize library buildings as well as facilities that provide free services to all members of the community. Eligible applicants include local or tribal governments only. Funding must be used for construction on a new or existing building. There is also a high emphasis placed on broadband connection and work, education, and healthcare monitoring, which is evident in the application process and in future reporting after 5 years once the project would potentially be completed. There's currently $107 million available for projects in Wisconsin. This would include at least 25 grants being awarded, and each project can receive up to $4.25 million, which is what we would potentially be applying for. There's 2 categories: construction or renovation or expansion of an existing facility. Since the grant utilizes COVID-19 relief funding, the timeline of this application process and requirements are very tight. The application is due by July 11th of this year, and grants will be awarded by October 1st. Pre-construction contracts would then be due at the end of the year, with construction beginning no later than July 1st of 2025 and completed by September 30th of 2026. And completed contract also means that the construction is completed and we also have the facilities available to the public at that time. Just a quick review of our building history. Our current building that we have today on Mequon Road was built in 2002 with 23,000 square feet, and it was built with the intention to add a second or mezzanine level 5 to 10 years later. This has not been completed to date, and our building is now 22 years old. The mezzanine level that we are proposing would add an additional 18,000 square footage to our building and provide a second floor area. Some of the current challenges with our building: after over 20 years, we are currently serving 35,000 residents. This includes the village of Germantown and also residents in many areas in Jackson and Richfield. One of our main problems today remains that with our growth in our services, we continue to have a large amount of residents using the building. While this is a great thing, especially for young families, these activities are creating a high level of noise. Our high ceilings and echoing of noise due to the current facility adds to the fact that we are frequently unable to meet the needs of residents that require quiet and confidential spaces to do things such as reading, working, studying, and completing tasks such as applying for jobs or government services. We are also in need for additional space after 22 years in a lot of the following areas, including additional meetings and study rooms, programming and interactive activity areas, material and a collection expansion, technology and computer centers, and also our staff workspace and storage areas. In 2022, we completed our strategic plan. And one of the things that scored the highest on our plan when we surveyed the public was the need for additional spaces, with our number one priority being creating a designated quiet space to read, work, or study. Some related projects that we've done so far: since 2018, the library and library board have completed many initiatives to demonstrate the need for additional space and to start the project for planning for a potential expansion to our building. This includes a feasibility study, completing our 5-year strategic plan in 2022, and gaining conceptual design proposals last year. Since learning about the grant a few weeks ago, we have also worked with Emberg Anderson Architects and Harvard Engineering to gain additional information regarding our current building estimates and also mechanical and structural needs. Here on the slide, you can see our current drawing for the expansion plan. Our building is set where we have kind of a low ceilings in a lot of areas. So the white space would be where we're not able to have any additional space. And then the lined area is where we could have that additional space. We do have some restrictions along. If you kind of look, there's a little bit different area along the front and a little bit of the sides of the building. We would have some weight restrictions on that building, so we may need to put things like seating and stay away from the heavy book stacks in those areas. But essentially, it would grant us over 18,000 square feet. That would be increased growth of 76.7%, taking our current library square footage from 23,000 to 41,000 square feet. Just a little information about our current expansion plan. We have not done any kind of design work, so this is just by looking at the studies we've done, looking at the need for the public, evaluating similar libraries and what they currently have, and then briefly discussing with our architect company that we had looked at. So the expansion does also include a lot of work and improvements to the first floor. All of that is included in the estimate that we provided. On the first floor, we are looking at an enclosed dedicated programming space. This would essentially open up our current community room to be more available for public use. Right now, our current community room is available, but it is heavily used by the library and also staff workspace. So we would be able to have more public things in our room and then focus a dedicated space on library programming and activities. We would also be adding an enclosed teen space, an expanded children's area, an early literacy area, expanded collections for youth, teen, media, and all sorts of library of things and new items on the first floor. The new space on the second floor would primarily be used for quiet areas, while the first floor would continue to grow as an active community and educational space for all ages, with a high focus on activities for children and teens. The second floor that we are proposing would include quiet study areas, study and meeting rooms, a small conference room, additional computer areas, staff workspace and storage, and also expanded collections, primarily for our adult areas that we would potentially put up on that second floor to kind of create a division between quieter activities and noisier activities on that first floor. How will the expansion meet grant requirements? A major component of this grant is creating spaces for work, education, and healthcare monitoring. The library currently provides a lot of these opportunities for residents already, but a second floor expansion would allow the library to provide more adequate spaces and opportunities for partnership in these areas. Provided on this slide are just a couple examples for the 3 categories of work, education, and healthcare monitoring. One example that we currently work with is the Wisconsin Job Center comes to our library every Monday and provides residents with job assistance, anything from interviewing, applying for jobs, resumes. They also provide a lot of training opportunities, not only for people looking for jobs, but people just looking to enhance their current job skills or looking for additional employment opportunities. One of the problems we have right now is we have very little study space and we can't guarantee any kind of quiet and private areas. So this would really take a lot of activities that we're already doing in our library and just make them better, more doable, and really able to meet the needs of the people wanting a quiet and confidential space in our building. Some challenges of the grant. One of the biggest challenges is the very quick timeline of the application. It is a very aggressive timeline, and we would need to get started on design work right away if we were to receive the grant on October 1st. Due to the work that we have previously completed with our strategic and facility planning, we feel that although challenging, we would be able to meet the deadlines of the grant. Additional space in our building would, of course, also require additional funding for operating for the library in areas such as staffing, materials, programs, and some added utility cost. The commitment of additional village funding is something that we are bringing forth. The scoring of the grant is heavily weighted so that any additional funding that needs to be committed, you score a lot higher on the grant if it's committed before submitting the application, which is why we brought forth this opportunity this evening. Cost estimates of the building. The current estimate for a second floor expansion that also includes first floor renovation. It does include a lot of other aspects such as relocating and some of the redoing our carpet and painting and some other things associated with the second floor. Our current cost estimate is $8.5 million. This is an updated estimate that was put together last week using current market value. And also the prices assume that construction is being done in 2025 and 2026 to meet the grant requirements. If received, the FFP grant would cover half of the cost at $4.25 million. We are asking tonight for the village board to consider committing the remainder $4.25 million only if the grant is received. Included in that $4.25 million is committed funding from the library board that includes $877,000 in Washington County capital funding and $72,000 in library impact fees. The remaining $3.3 million would potentially be financed through general obligation debt. We also have some potential contributions to debt service that we would potentially be able to include in paying back that debt service. One of those is the impact fees. We currently get about $10,000 for impact fees, and this would potentially be greatly increased depending on the results of the impact fee study, which the library is included in. We also are receiving Washington County capital funding. Right now that's set at $23,000 per year. That is something that we got for many, many years. We stopped for a couple years and now we're getting again. So while it's not guaranteed, it is a large chunk of money that the library could contribute each year to debt service. And then before you in the packet is the resolution that we drafted for the commitment of these funds. Myself and the library board understand that this is a very big ask for the village and one that we were not planning to do this year. This was something we kind of put on the back burner to hopefully visit in a couple years. But after reviewing the grant application materials, we felt that this opportunity should be brought to the village board for consideration due to the potential ability to save the taxpayers several $1 billion in the long run. I appreciate you taking the time to review the information and consider the opportunity to commit the funding if the library were to receive an FFP grant.
Questions? Trustee Cutts?
First, I want to say I agree with this. I'm for it. I think it's a good thing and it's a great opportunity given possible grant money to help offset this. My question is, because the grant could be up to 4.25. If they don't give that full amount of the grant, do we come back to approve more? Because right now we're just approving 4.25 from us to match it.
That is something that we could potentially come back to the board. We do have 30 days once we would receive grant money to accept it. So we could come back to the village board at that time and look at raising that or looking at other forms of funding.
Thank you.
Other questions? Trustee Peeper?
So you said the grant can be used to remodel or build a building.
Yes.
What about, I'm just thinking outside of the box. What
Mhm.
about a current building that exists in the village that is not currently the library? Could you use the grant funds to remodel that?
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
That would qualify for the grant.
That would, okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. And what the library director said is correct. It would qualify. I think it would be a real challenge given the time frame to be able to. One of the reasons I think we're kind of able to fit a narrow window here is that where we are with some conceptual work done already.
I was just being hypothetical.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we've kind of talked about some of
Yeah.
those different options and
And,
things.
you know, part of the reason we're even able to really apply for this grant, even it is like Mr. Coco said, it is such a tight window. Part of the reason we feel that we're even able to apply for the grant and get everything done in time is because of all the work and relationships that we have with the companies we've worked with and kind of laying that groundwork and doing the, you know, pre-planning work for this project. So as far as like starting from scratch and looking at a whole nother building, that would
Yeah, I know.
probably be very tight with the timeline.
Trustee Kaminsky?
Steve, maybe you can remind me about, we're in planning for the police station now. We just approved at public safety meeting, somebody to look at the best way to expand or place the police station somewhere else in the village as we continue to grow and as crime continues to grow. What is the timing on that? And what would remind me too of the timing on when we would hope to, if we had a build or build out, when would we be doing that?
So in the current 5-year capital improvements plan, we anticipate doing preliminary design on a public safety building during 2024, and that was what was before the Public Safety Committee earlier this evening, and it'll be before the village board on the 17th. Full design and bid documents for the police station would be done in 2025 with construction in 2026. And then just going beyond that, then in the current 5-year plan, the library was on for design in 2027 with construction in 2028. So this definitely would change that. You know, obviously we felt talking about it with the amount of a potential grant, it was worth bringing before the board.
Yes, I mean, the two things that are going to unfortunately force me to vote against this are the timing, which is extremely ambitious and overlaps the police station or public safety building, however we decide to do that. We're in the midst of trying to define that and work our way through that. And I personally see that as a priority for the village. That's always, along with roads, public safety is number one and number two as far as a constituent issue is concerned. So there's no way you can borrow for both of these in that same time frame. There just isn't. It's an impossibility. I wish this grant would have come up like 2 or 3 years from now. It would have been great. But I think in this current timing, even if we weren't even planning a police station, this is really super ambitious. And just knowing what we went through with Public Works and knowing how these things generally unfold and unfurl, they take a lot longer than you think they're going to take. And here we'd be pressured into like approving plans and getting construction going. I just personally think, while The library is a great thing for the community. I think public safety trumps it. And that's what I would support.
Trustee Chan Miller, did you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Um, I would like to reiterate that I am in support of this. It's not every day that you get a potential for 4.25 million to come out of ARPA funds to even be a consideration. Let's be clear about this. This is a proposal to get a grant. It doesn't mean that we will get the grant, and it could be anything up to 4.25 million. But it's like having a bird in hand. This is an opportunity to give back to the village and the taxpayers 4.25 million that we do not have to pay back. It is an ARPA fund. And we do have the Washington County Capital Library funds that we've been saving for just this moment. It's 877,000 plus our impact fees. So we're almost at $1 million. So to get almost double the space, which we really, really need at the library for 3.3 million, and to have it done, we are confident. I was on the library board when we did the strategic plan. We met with we did an RFP. We had at least 4 different architects come in, do drawings. We considered one, and then we got pushed back. Well, sometimes when these opportunities come up, you've got to take them. Because to your point, Trustee Kaminsky, these opportunities for grants don't come down the pike every day. It's just like our ARPA funds that we have, it's limited. So it's a great community project. It doesn't take away from the police at all.
How so? Where's the 3 million come from?
They're finished. Trustee Kaminsky.
I have the floor. It doesn't take away, it just means that they could be going simultaneously. As a matter of fact, based on the timeline, we already have a plan. We know what their timeline is, and we can meet it. We have the library's commitment that we can meet it. And technically, we wouldn't even be starting the public safety building until 2026, when the library is completed and people are walking in September of 2026. So I think there is it's a great opportunity. And if there's one thing that we can do for the Village of Germantown residents, it's to utilize some more ARPA funds that are coming our way. Thank you.
Trustee Warren?
I have concerns about cost and schedule. Just to make this happen in that timeline, I think is ridiculous. The cost is also ridiculous. If you do the math, this thing works out to $475 a square foot, which is crazy expensive. And I understand adding a second floor to an existing building is very complicated to do. That's why you're seeing costs at this level. Do you have like a backup plan, something, I think you mentioned like improving broadband, something more realistic for the timeline that we're in and the costs that we're looking at?
Essentially improving broadband, I don't think would meet the scope of the grant. I mean, they're really looking for part of the grant is either a new construction or expanding a current space. So for this particular grant, that really wouldn't qualify.
So I like the carrots that they dangle in front of us, but I think in reality, it's just not feasible.
Trustee Cutts?
I think we need to go forward with this because it is a grant opportunity. We have a limited amount of time. Even if Tricia applies, it doesn't mean we're going to get the grant, but they need that commitment, which will help give points towards achieving that, and it's money. I mean, it's half the cost.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Trustee Warren, I just wanted to reiterate that the structure, the steel structure for the second floor is already in the building. Okay. Well, the architect was chosen and we have plans. Oh, that one? Just to be clear, we did not hire trustee David Baum. We're working with Engberg
So
Anderson.
we have worked with an architect on conceptual design, but we have not chosen an architect.
Right,
That would be part
right.
of the bid process.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
What was the square footage again, Bob?
18,000 square feet of additional,
Right, what was it cost per?
$472 a square foot.
Okay.
472.27 if you.
Okay. Trustee Ball.
If you could make it happen, great. Are we locked into this? If it doesn't happen, if numbers change, can we back out at any point? That'd be a question I have. The building will end up being shut down during construction. What is the process of moving the library somewhere else to then move it back in?
Yep.
You cannot do this as an open remodeling.
Right.
My understanding is the entire front wall of the library has to come out so that you can get all the steel joists and beams that still have to go in there. Is very complicated, very challenging, and is not a simple project. I am concerned about the time frame. But if you can get $4.25 million, I'd be willing to commit to it. But I want to be able to back out in a heartbeat if I don't get 4.25 million.
So you would go, you wouldn't go for anything less than that?
If I don't get 4.25 million, I don't want any part of this.
Okay.
And that time frame, I don't think you can do it in that time frame.
Well, it would take a good, I don't even know what the time frame it would take to move everything out of its way. I mean, I don't know if you run a library out of pods or you get a.
Where do you go?
Sure.
For a different building.
Well, first,
We have a
to answer the
trailer.
first question, we would have October 1st, we would have 30 days to back out of the grant. So that would give us a little more time to start that design process and run the timeline, see if this is doable. We have talked really in depth with Harwood Engineering and also Engberg Anderson Architects to kind of we worked with them the past couple of years, so they are very familiar with this project. They do feel very confident that the time frame is doable due to all the work we've done. As far as moving out of the building, that is, of course, a major undertaking. The move in, or the move out and the move in cost is included in the 8.5 million. So when you talk about when you see that the cost is so high, a lot of that does include things like the move out cost. It does include a lot of renovations on that first floor level. We really want to make this project something that is going to be very long lasting and not just move some things upstairs and put a couple of rooms in and make it work. We really want to kind of redesign. 22 years is a long time. So the library has very much changed in that time. So there's a lot of things we want to do to the first floor as well, since we're going to be doing a complete shutdown of the building. We want to get everything done right away and really make the building work a lot better to meet the needs in our community today. As far as moving out, yes, that is a very big undertaking. We would potentially we would need to relocate services somewhere else, whether that would be in one place or a couple of places. We have talked about some potential ideas. We would move a lot of our items, we would move our staff. Whether or not it would all be in one place, I'm not sure, but I feel confident that we can develop a plan that we can serve our community the best we can during this time. It's of course not going to be as good as having everything under one roof. But we already do a lot of outreach, a lot of mobile things. We're already kind of using that model in our day-to-day services that we provide, and understanding that the library isn't just about being in our building. A building is, of course, very needed and part of what we do, but we also do a lot of things outside the building. So it would give us a lot of creative opportunities to kind of meet the people where they are and provide services in a different way during that time that we would be constructing the renovations and then move back into our current building once it's completed.
Could you say though, trustee Warren, that based on our out-of-pocket expense, that you're really more about half of that per square foot? You're just looking at the overall cost.
Just overall cost. I don't know what that number is.
Okay.
I'm not an architect, but it's just doing the quick math. I know that magnitude is.
Right, per square foot is high, very high.
It's on the way high side, yeah.
Mm.
There are more efficient ways to get the space.
Trustee Hutz?
So I'm going to not repeat my library theory that I've said in the past. So how do we know that it's $7.5 million? So where is that number and how old is that number?
Sure. That is a number that was updated a week ago. So we worked with Emberg Anderson on getting an updated estimate. That's
And when did we get our first estimate, please, Trish?
3 years.
3 years ago? And what was that number 3 years ago, please?
It was about 6 million, 6.5 million, I believe.
So that's a different inflation rate than we've seen in the construction industry over the 3 years, and that's fine. So what would happen with cost overruns? Is the grant gonna, so we just had a rather nasty experience with an intersection that we just redid, where we ended up paying a lot more than we had budgeted. So if this comes in at maybe $10 million, is ARPA going to kick in the same ratio, or are we going to be on the hook for that?
ARPA would not kick in. It would be capped at the 4.2 million or whatever we would receive. We'd also be looking at fundraising to cover additional things, things that come up, projects, enhancements. We haven't done the design process yet. So
I want to be respectful. So if we haven't done the design process, how do we know it's 7.5 million?
we are looking at our best estimate based on working with our architect company and looking at comparables.
And
Looking at what, we've been working with them for a few years, so they have a good idea of what we're looking for and the kind of things we would want. So
How
looking
much
at all of
money-
those things.
How much money do you think you can raise?
How much you got?
That's a valid question.
So, I mean, originally we were looking at raising like $2 to $3 million and doing a huge capital funding campaign, getting the community involved, hiring a consultant. That was kind of our original plan. Looking at how fast this timeline is, I don't know. And I can't commit to raising millions of dollars. We would, once that grant would be received, we would start fundraising as well and hopefully get million. I can't give you a guarantee, but we would be looking at doing fundraising as well to kind of cover any extra costs and anything that comes up during the process.
And would that lower the village's 3.3, or would that just go to extra costs?
Potentially extra costs, depending on if there are any extra costs.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if we find out that 8.5 is, or it's 8.7 or something, I mean, that's something we would discuss down the road, but there's a lot of unknowns. So knowing how much we could commit to that potentially we could get that number down a bit, but we wouldn't know that yet. And unfortunately, the grant is written so they want the extra funding committed to guarantee, so that they're not giving out all these grants and then they need, because it's essentially COVID relief funding, they have timelines too. So they don't want to be handing out all these grants without the match funding committed. That's why the timeline is so tight, unfortunately.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yep.
It's the follow-up that for 5 years would be kind of interesting. I mean, any money from the federal government isn't free, so it always has strings attached.
Right,
And
yep.
those reports would be interesting to see what you would have to fill out and what type of reporting. But, I mean, roll the dice. I mean, it's available out there. We have some, if it doesn't agree with how it comes through or what it comes through at, we have 30 days to decide. I mean,
And
it doesn't hurt to try. So, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to mention, we would bring any, if we did receive any sort of money, we would bring that back to the board for approval. So at that time, you could
Okay, we don't have a motion.
not take it.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution for filing for the FFP grant of 4.25 million.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? We pretty much have it, but if anybody has anything else. No further discussion. We'll have to do a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Ketz,
Aye.
trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Hetson,
Aye.
trustee Pieper, trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Trish.
Thank you.
Exciting times. Darlene, don't run out until we go into closed session. I want to talk to you about something before you leave. Okay? Thank you. All right, so next item on the agenda is a development agreement with Sterling Pharma Solutions. The village board may go into closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85, subsection 1, subparagraph E, for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating when competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and then re-enter into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate.
Motion to go into closed session for new business item N with the following people here. Administrator,
Mr. Christian Sheschlag from
Mr. and my bestie Jeff Retzloff and
Here?
attorney. Oh, does he need to be here? He wants to go home.
Second.
Motion-
And Donna goes home.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve going into closed session? No discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren, trustee Ketz,
Aye.
trustee Baum,
Certainly.
trustee Jan Miller,
Of course.
trustee Hudson, trustee Pieper,
Okie dokie.
okey-dokey, trustee Rick
Okey-dokey.
Miller, trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter.
That would be perfect.
All right, I like it.
Brian, do you have to be here? Oh, you need to. Motion.